Oh, oh, oh. Om Sahanavavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sadashivasamarambam Shankaracharya-madhyamam Asmadacharya-paryantam Vande Guru-paramparam Shruti-smriti-purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat-pada Shankaram Loka-Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Shri Chinmaya Yatishasya Gurum Vande Tapovanam Tam Himavad Vibhutim Vai Jnana Vairagya Rupinam Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha Om Shri Saraswatyai Namaha Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. It is indeed an honor and a privilege for me to be asked to cover this text. This is the first Upanishad that I will be covering in detail. I have done Kaivalya Upanishad before in the meditation class. But what I would like to emphasize that there is no teacher or student. We are all co-seekers. We are all on the spiritual journey together. And only reason I'm here on the mic is because Niru has given me some talks by some acharyas and I have read Gurudev's commentary. So I'm just sharing whatever I have accumulated from these great masters. So I just would like to start with that. Before we begin the study of the Upanishad, I'd like to remind everybody that in the beginning of this text, Ishavasya Upanishad, there is about a 50-page introduction. Please don't read it right now. Read it after the class. But there is a 50-page introduction to not only to this Upanishad, but to all spiritual studies. Every spiritual seeker should read it, but take your time. Don't try to open the page and turn it right now, because then your mind won't be on what we are saying. I'm going to summarize some of the highlights from Pujya Gurudev's teachings today, but don't take that as a complete summary. Please read it for yourself, because it is 50 pages and it's hard for me to summarize. But Gurudev has done a masterful job in introducing spiritual studies to us. What is the purpose of spiritual studies and how this study should be done? It's the most beautiful. So I would recommend to everybody to read that. But just a few points I got from it that I'll share with you. One of the points Gurudev always makes in his teachings throughout, he talks about the connection between religion and science, or spirituality and science. Spirituality and religion are used interchangeably, but religion refers more to the rituals, to the prayers, sadhanas. Spirituality refers to the knowledge, which is the goal of religious studies. So that is a slight difference, but we can use them interchangeably. So Gurudev says that the purpose of religion or spirituality, we'll just use one word, religion and science, is to give maximum happiness to the people, to everybody. And they both started out together, say, few hundred years, maybe in the 5th century or whenever, or scientific knowledge mostly in the last 500-600 years. Religion, of course, is thousands of years old. But their goal of both was to give happiness. What happened is science continued to progress. Science did not stop. And we see that what has happened is that we have all these great inventions, aeroplanes, cars, computers, space travel, comfortable homes, heating, air conditioning. So science has made our life very comfortable. I mean, what the things that we enjoy, our fathers or grandfathers would have never even thought possible. And that is all due to the blessings of science. So science has made a major contribution in our life. Religion, on the other hand, started out with the same goal of giving happiness. That's what the rishis of the Upanishads started, the teachings thousands of years ago. How to provide maximum happiness to everyone. That's what our motto of the Chinmaya mission is, maximum happiness to maximum people for maximum time. So the rishis had the same goal. And in their meditation, the Vedas, these mantras and the Upanishads were revealed to them. And they shared it without any sense of ownership. Most of the Upanishads don't even have an author. We don't know who the guru was, who the student was, who the writer was. So they just shared the knowledge. Science deals with the objects of the world. What I see, how can I improve? While spirituality deals with the subject, which is the knower of not only everything, but the knower of my mind, my intellect, my senses, my body, everything is known to that knower, that subject. And spirituality focused on that. But over these hundreds of years, religion stopped progressing. In fact, it went backwards. And a lot of superstitions, false beliefs, wrong understandings of who am I, who is God, what is my purpose in life, all these. And then our wrong ideas we ascribe to God, that God is very jealous, God gets angry, God will punish. So all our foolishness we transfer to God. So religion stopped progressing. And that is why, and a lot of idol worship is okay, but without understanding what is the purpose of idol worship, the conflict started between various facets of Hinduism, Shaivites and Vaishnava. So at that time, Buddhism grew because Buddha said there should be no idol worship. We should have peace, compassion, freedom from sorrow. And that was very good. Buddhism spread everywhere. But unfortunately, in India, Nepal, Tibet, as we saw, those of us who went to Kailash, Buddhism, the Buddha's Buddhism was misunderstood and it became an escapist religion where I should not work and everybody became a monk. Everybody was a monk. So there was in Tibet, when we went, there were no soldiers, there was no army, nobody was working, the roads there were no roads, people were living in extreme poverty. Why? Because they misunderstood Buddha's teachings of Vairagya. Vairagya means don't work. And it is because of that China walked into Tibet without firing a bullet. They took over the whole country. So the same thing happened in India, where the wrong idea of Buddhism spread and people became lazy, became detached, not working. And so Shankaracharya ji saw this sorry state of affairs of Hindus at that time, of the whole India. And so he traveled in his 32 years, traveled through the four corners, mostly on foot or bullock cart, and established four mathas, four centers of excellence where the teachings were spread. He himself confronted or discussed these findings with wrong people who had wrong beliefs about, about the spirituality, and he defeated them in debates, and he reestablished the Vedic religion, which thousands of years old we had forgotten. So we owe a great debt of gratitude to this great master, and our teachings of Chinmaya mission are based on that. So what Shankaracharya ji did, he redefined our teachings. And he said that faith is required, faith and detachment. And detachment is required even in a material field. Even a scientist, if he wants to make any new study, if he's attached to one particular idea, he will never come out with something new. And same way in spirituality, I should not hold on to my old ideas, but be willing to learn, be willing to progress, and develop a holistic principle. That's what Guruji, Swami Tejomayananda ji says. Live a whole life and see life as a whole. What it means is, I should not only worry about my physical progress, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual. All aspects of my personality should progress. Why? Because we are looking for permanent joy. Nobody's, if I ask you, I'll give you joy for a year, but after 1 year, you will be very miserable. Nobody wants that. Everybody wants permanent joy, but unfortunately, we look for joy in objects, in things, in people, in position, in power, in bank balance. So when we hold on to objects for joy, what it does, it creates a feeling of I and mine and you and yours, tera mera, and that's how all the problems start. Then there is greed, then there is jealousy, then there is hatred, then there is competition, then there is selfishness. So as long as we are looking for joy in objects, all it will do is increase our vasanas. So they say you should purify your mind, reduce your vasanas through service, through prayer, bhakti, and through meditation. And the qualities that we need to develop are satyam, brahmacharya, and ahimsa. That is self-control. Satyam means the truth, which means my speech, my mind, and my body should be the same. What I think, I should say, I should do. And what is brahmacharya? Brahmacharya does not only mean abstinence, but it means living a life of moderation and self-control in what I speak, what I hear, what I see, how I act in the world should be under control. And ahimsa, we all know, it is non-violence at the speech level, at the thought level, and at the action level. And some amount of withdrawal is required, which they call as pratyahara. There is Ashtanga Yoga. Is everybody familiar with the 8 steps, or do you want me to very briefly tell them? If everybody knows them, I won't go into that. But what they say is pratyahar or detachment, withdrawal from this attachment to the senses. So when you withdraw from that, then only you can hold on to the higher. So dhyana and samadhi can happen only when there is pratyahar, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. And in our scriptures, they have given 4 paths, which we all know: the path of karma yoga, bhakti, and the Raja Yoga, which is pranayam, asana, and meditation. And then the 4th one is the path of knowledge, which is given in the Upanishads. So the idea is that I should always seek the conscious, intelligent principle within us, because most of us work at the instinct level. What I want, I just go get it, but we don't look for the source of happiness. So now we'll come to the Vedas, which the Upanishads are a part of the Vedas, and the Vedas have 4 portions. The first one is called mantra. There are 4 Vedas: Rig Ved, Yajur Ved, Sam Ved, and Atharvana Ved. 4 Vedas, which Ved Vyasji, because there were thousands and thousands of different teachings, which Ved Vyasji, thankfully, he organized them into 4 Vedas. And then each Veda is divided into 4 sections. So the first one is called Mantra section, also called Mantra Samhita. The second portion is, which are the prayers, which are the chants, not the prayers, but like the Gayatri mantra, which is an invocation of the sun god. So these mantras are chantings to invoke the blessings of the Lord, to praise the Lord. So stuti, that is done in the mantras. The second portion is called Brahmanas. Brahmanas are the rituals. So when I'm doing rituals, then I use the mantras to perform rituals. And rituals can be done to please the god, or if you want a son, or if you want something done, or the purpose of ritual actually should be mind purification. The third section is called Aranyakas. Aranyakas are the upasanas, where I worship God and I meditate upon God. So the prayers, the meditations, the upasana, sitting close to God, is the third. And the fourth is the Upanishads, which is the highest knowledge, which we will be starting today. And it is very interesting. I actually didn't know that, but I heard that these 4 sections are meant for the 4 ashramas. So for a brahmachari, for a student, mantras. Why? Because at that age, you can memorize, right? Now, if you try at age 60 or 70 to memorize mantra, how hard it is. So they say first 25 years, does not mean that you don't memorize now, but it is easier to memorize when you are young. So mantras are for the brahmacharis. Second, the rituals are done by householders, right? Householders do rituals for pleasing God, for asking for something for their children, or, whatever, for purifying the house. Like when they buy a new house or start a factory, so they do rituals. Then the people who are in Vanaprastha ashram, where most of us are, for us, it is Aranyakas, it is the upasanas. So we should withdraw from the world, stop interfering in our children and grandchildren's affairs, and think about God, spend time about God. Why you want to worry what grandson is doing, why he's not studying, why son is not. Stop all that. If they ask for advice, give it. Otherwise, spend your time in bhakti. Bhagwan bhakti karo. That's what, Bhagavad bhakti. So that is Aranyakas. And Upanishads are meant for sannyasis. So that is the way it is done. But there are other, why the Ishavasya we are studying, we'll talk about that. So now we'll come to the word Upanishad. Upanishad, the word is divided into 3. So Upa means Samipe, means near. So what you do, you approach a teacher. So there are many meanings of Upanishad. I'll deal with 3 today. So one is approach the teacher. Upani means nishchayatma, with nishchaya and with nishtha. So with a firm determination and faith in the Guru, faith in the scriptures, and sincerity. See, sincerity is very important. Why don't we progress in spirituality? Because we are not sincere. You have to sincerely do that every day. Sincerity is very important in any field. So nishchaya means nishtha, sincerity. And shat has actually many meanings, 3 meanings. So one is visharana, one is gati, and one is avasadhanam. So these are Sanskrit words. Visarana means destruction. So gati means goal and means, and avasadhanam means loosening. So what should I loosen? I should loosen the hold of my vasanas, the whole of my wrong tendencies, wrong understandings, my ego, my ignorance. That is holding on to me, my attachments to things and beings. So when I loosen that, and my goal is, gati is what? Satchidanand Brahman, Atma, that is my true self, that is my goal. Then what happens? There is a destruction. And what is the destruction? Of my wrong understanding, of my ego, of my selfishness, of my vasanas, of my attachment. So slowly Bhagavan then takes charge of our life and destroys. That's why they say that Brahmaji creates, Lord Vishnu maintains, and Lord Shiva is the dissolver. So we invoke all three of them for this spiritual journey. So that is one meaning of Upanishad, loosening my attachments with my goal clear, and then destruction of my ignorance, of my ego. The second meaning, Upanishad, which most of us know, is Upa means near, Ni means below, and Shat means sit. So sit at the feet of a teacher. Below means with humility. People say, why do I need to go to a teacher? I'll read it on the internet. You know, I can read Upanishad on internet. There is translations. No, they say, Guru Mukhena, only through the mouth of a guru, this knowledge can be communicated. And Shankaracharya ji says it very beautifully. Shastrajñopi, even you might have studied the Shastra, but Swatantrena, this Brahma Veshanam na kuryat. You on your own cannot study the scriptures. You need the grace of a guru. That's why we have to humbly prostrate to Puja Gurudev, Swami Chinmayananda ji. Because of his grace, we have this wonderful knowledge. I mean, where I would never even knew the meaning of the word Upanishad, and the fact that we are able to sit and discuss, it is one master's vision. So, Guru Mukhena, through the mouth of a guru, it should be studied. There is a third meaning, which is Upani and then Shat. Shat means destruction. So destruction of ego. How will destruction of ego happen? Upani means combine, bring together. So when my mind is brought together with God, then my destruction of ego happens. God or Atma or Brahman, or they're all the same. So there are three meanings of Upanishad, and that's, I hope that is kind of clear to everybody. So there are 10 major Upanishads, and there are hundreds of other Upanishads called minor. So Isha is one of the major Upanishad. There are 10, I'll just name them. Isha, Kena, Katha, Prashna, that's 4. Mundak, Mandukya, 6. Then there is Aitriya, Taitriya, and Chandogya, and Brihadaranyaka. So there are 10 major Upanishads, and there are hundreds of other Upanishads, at least 108 that we know of, but there are probably more and which have been composed. Why are these 10 called major? Isha is one of them. It's not that the knowledge in the major is different from the knowledge in the minor, like Kaivalya Upanishad is considered a minor Upanishad, but directly it goes to the truth. In fact, the Kaivalya Upanishad, the student Ashvalayana was himself a great Vedic scholar who had written Vedic mantras, and he approaches the teacher Brahmaji for the knowledge, and Brahmaji reveals it to this Rishi. So it's not that the other Upanishads are minor. The goal of all of them is Brahma Vidya, but we call these 10 major because Shankaracharya ji wrote a commentary on these 10. He also wrote a commentary on Sweta Ashvatara Upanishad, but that is some controversy whether he really did or not. But these 10 are considered major. And there could be many reasons. Some people say, well, these Upanishads needed further explanation, or these Upanishads were revealing Brahman, in a very simple manner, or maybe the people needed it. But the main reason why Shankaracharya ji wrote commentary on these 10 Upanishads, because he wanted to study the Brahma Sutras, and he wanted us to study the Brahma Sutras. So these 10 Upanishads are quoted extensively by Ved Vyas ji when he wrote the Brahma Sutras, which is the highest teaching. So to make it easier for us to study the Brahma Sutras, he has written bhashyas on these 10 Upanishads. And that is the bhashya that the acharyas I have been listening to are using Shankaracharya ji's bhashya. So that is why this Upanishad these are considered major Upanishad. Then we always ask, there is a thing called Anubandh Chatushtaya. Neeru, I'm sure, has addressed that before. But very briefly, Anubandha Chatushtaya means there are four aspects before you start studying a particular book or a particular text or a particular, spiritual journey. So one is Adhikari. Adhikari means who is qualified. So who is qualified? Sadhan Chatushtaya Sampanna. One who has the Sadhan Chatushtaya is Adhikari. I won't explain Sadhan Chatushtaya. Everybody knows that. What is the Vishaya? What is the second? What is the topic? First is who is qualified to study. Second is what is the topic? That is Jiva Brahma Aikyam. The oneness between Jiva and Brahma, between me and Brahman, the oneness. Me means not at this body level, but at the level of consciousness, there is only one. So that is the topic of all Upanishads. Then what is Prayojanam? Why are we sitting here on Tuesday afternoon studying this knowledge? What is the reason? Mukti. We all want liberation. We are not sitting here just because time pass, aur kuch karne ko nahi hai, time pass ke liye, let me just sit here. No, I'm not sitting here for time pass. I'm sitting here because I want mukti. I want Jivan Mukti here now itself, not in one year or one lifetime or 5 lifetimes. I want Jivan Mukti here now, not even tomorrow. So that is the Prayojanam. That is why we are studying. And what is Mukti? People think Mukti means what? What will I be free from? So they say Mukti means Atyantika Dukha Nivritti Paramananda Prapti. So through this liberation, all my sorrows go away and I experience supreme joy. So they say all my sorrows will go away means I won't get old, I won't have backache, I won't have arthritis. No, that's not Mukti. Mukti is realizing that I am that infinite Brahman and this body is not me. So the body will have its prarabdha, the ego individual, whatever my jiva has come in this body will go through the prarabdha, but I will know that it's not happening to me, it is happening to this ego. So that is mukti. And once you know that, then you have supreme bliss, ananda. That is the prayojanam. And then the fourth is sambandha. What is the sambandha? What is my connection to this knowledge and what is the knowledge going to give me? So it says that for the sambandha, one is that I listen to this, I listen to the recordings, I make notes, I have CDs, I have websites, I can listen. But the main sambandha is I should connect with the essence of this knowledge. What is the teacher trying to indicate? Because this knowledge cannot be, Brahman cannot be described, cannot be defined, can only be indicated. So these Upanishads are the best way that the rishis have indicated to us. And it is not Brahman who is somewhere else, but that is me. I am. So the main reason to study the Upanishad is to know who am I. And that is why we are studying Upanishads. Who am I really? What is my real nature? Because in the world, if we look for things, the worldly things have four things. One is any worldly accomplishment is temporary, right? It is SAT, temporary. It is temporary. Then it is AP. It is associated with pain, because sooner or later, whatever I have got in this world, whether it's a person, whether it's a job, whether it is an object, whether it is my house, my car, even my body, whatever I have, my mind, everything sooner or later will give me pain. Guaranteed. That is, aaj nahi to kal ho jayega. You know, if you don't have it today, maybe in 5 years, 10 years, whatever I possess will give me pain. The second is, it is guaranteed to give you dissatisfaction. Dissatisfaction, guaranteed. You can never have permanent satisfaction, and it will create dependence. Once I like something, DC, so DC, DG, and AP, and SAT. So these are the four things that worldly objects will give you. Temporary, will give you pain, will create dependence, and will create dissatisfaction, is guaranteed. So stop looking for happiness in the world. Start looking for happiness within. And that can only happen with the right knowledge. Another point which we have brought up many times in the Bhagavad Gita, but I'd like to emphasize here also, that the teacher of the Upanishad is talking to me. Like when we read Kathopanishad, we say, oh, Nachiketa went to Yamaraj and he asked for the highest knowledge, and we see Yamaraj giving, Are kya acha bata rahe Yamaraj, you know, he's teaching so beautifully. See how much Nachiketa is benefiting. Are you benefiting or not? You are Nachiketa, I am Nachiketa. So Yamaraj is talking to me. So this Upanishad is talking to me, not to some other student. Like Bhagavad Gita is not being taught by Bhagavan to Arjuna, is being taught to me. So that is very clearly should be understood. Then the word Isha. Isha means God. Why was the name given Isha Vasya Upanishad? Because the first mantra says Isha Vasyam Idagam Sarvam Yat Kincha Jagatyan Jagat. We'll talk about that in a couple of weeks, but today I'm only going to do the introduction. So this whole world is pervaded by that Ishvara, Tena Tyaktena Bhunjitaha Magrida Kasya Svidhanam. So we'll talk about that in a couple of weeks. But Isha was the first mantra, the first word of the first mantra. That's why it is called Isha Vasya. Vasya means it is covered by, it is pervaded by Ishvara, the God. And it is actually one of the shortest Upanishads, has only 18 mantras. But the teachings are so advanced, so deep, that every mantra can have minimum 2 or 3 explanations. And if you look at the commentaries by different acharyas, the same mantra they have interpreted in so many different ways that if you go on the internet, it will be very confusing. But in our study in the next few weeks, we will be using Shankar Bhashya. Thankfully, Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji, in his compassion for us, wrote bhashyas on all these Upanishads, so that we follow one stream of thought, one guideline, and that will be our purpose. Also, some people say that these 18 mantras correspond to 18 chapters in the Bhagavad Gita, and they have connected each mantra with a different chapter. And that is probably one of the reasons why the Isha Vasya Upanishad is very popular, and there are maximum commentaries on that. Even though Isha is the first one mentioned in the 10, Isha, and then all the others that we covered, Kena, Katho, and all, but they say don't start study with Isha, because Isha is one of the hardest. If you want to start with Kathopanishad or Mundak, but I don't know why we did, because we have done Mundak, we have done Katho, so all of you are already Upanishad scholars, Brahmagyanis, so so I think Ishavasya will be okay. But anyway, the point is that we are doing Ishavasya. So sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you. I'll try my best to. So Ishavasya Upanishad. Now, who was the Rishi? Actually, the Rishi to whom it was revealed is said to be Yajnavalkya Rishi. Yajnavalkya Rishi, when he was worshipping the sun god, and in his deep meditation, he heard these 18 mantras. That's why they are called Shruti. They were heard, and then he passed on this knowledge to his student. And that's why one of the very popular mantras, the number 15 in this, is a invocation to the sun god. Hiranmayena patrena satyasya pihitam mukham tattvam pushana pavranu satya dharmaya drishtaye. May I see the truth, O sun god. The truth has been covered with this golden pot, golden vessel. And O sun god, you please reveal the truth to me. So that is one of the very popular mantras. I'm sorry?
It is in the Upanishad Ganga.
Yeah, Upanishad Ganga, this particular mantra has been explained. So that is what is about the Ishavasya Upanishad. We'll go in more detail in
and
the...
It is from Shukla Yajurveda.
Yeah. It is from Yajurveda, and it is the Shukla Yajurveda. I will talk about that. So each of the 4 Vedas has a mantra, a Shanti mantra. You know, we say Om Sahana Bhavatu Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So the Rig Veda has the Shanti mantra, Va me manasi sthitaha, etc., etc. That means may my mind be in my speech and may my speech be in my mind. What it means is may my mind and my speech be in accordance. We work together. And why? So that Atman may reveal itself to me. This consciousness. So may with my mind, with my speech, with my chanting, I may progress, so that I may get this highest knowledge. So that is the Rig Veda Shanti mantra. The Yajur, as Niru said, has Krishna and Shukla. So the Krishna has the Shanti mantra, Om Sahana Bhavatu. You know, we all know that, we all chant it. But very briefly, when we chant Om Sahana Bhavatu, the teacher and the student are both praying to the divine that may our studies be fruitful, may our intellect be sharp, and may there be no misunderstanding. Ma vidvishavahai. Then this the Shukla Paksha has Om Purna Mada, which is the Shanti mantra of this Upanishad, which is a very long explanation. I won't do it today. We'll cover it next week. And the Shanti mantra, and then possibly Ishavasya Idagam. Purnamada generally we chant at the end, but here we will be chanting in the beginning because it is the Shanti mantra of this particular Upanishad. Of Samveda, it is Apyayantu Mamangani, and then there's a long mantra, Shanti mantra, which follows, which means is that may my limbs be strong, may my mind be strong, may my understanding be good, may my body be healthy, so that may I not reject Brahman and may Brahman not reject me, which means may I not reject this knowledge, may I very sincerely pursue this knowledge, and may all the good qualities that are mentioned in the Upanishads, may they be in me. So that is what the student and teacher are praying for. And the Atharva Veda, all of you know that, Bhadram Karnevi Shrunuyam Deva, Bhadram Pashe, may I see what is auspicious, may I hear what is auspicious, Sthirai Rangaihi Stuštuvagam Sastanubihi Vyashema Deva Hitam Yadayu. whatever age, whatever lifetime you have given to us, Bhagwan, may my body be healthy so I may serve you. Deva Hitam, my life should be a life of service. And then all the 4 Shanti mantras end with Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. And you know what Shanti means? May there be peace from the celestial forces. May there be peace in my surroundings. And may there be peace inside me, inside my heart. So it is also called Mangala Charan, and it is a prayer. So Gurudev says it very beautifully. He says, prayer is not beggary. You don't go in front of God and say, give me this, give me that. Why don't I have this? How come I don't have that? How come my son doesn't have a job? How come my daughter is not getting married? Prayer is not for beggary. Prayer is to tune your mind and intellect. May my mind and intellect be tuned with the higher. Does not mean that you shouldn't ask for God for things. It is better to ask God than to ask somebody else. But I should not approach only God only when I need something, but constantly remember. There's a very beautiful Kabir Das ji doha. Dukh mein sumiran sab kare, sukh mein kare na koi. Jo sukh mein sumiran kare, to dukh kahe ko hoye. He says everybody remembers God in sorrow. Nobody remembers God when they are happy. If you remember God when you are happy, you will never have sorrow. So remember God always. So that is what the purpose of prayer is, that my mind, let my mind be pure, let my mind be still. And in the silence of my meditation, when my mind is quiet, when I have done puja, purified my mind, then in that mind, Lord may reveal himself to me. I have to just surrender, get the right knowledge, surrender, and then I have to know who this God I am surrendering to. And then in that silence of the meditation, the Atma reveals itself. That's what when they say, Vang me manasi sthitaha. May the Lord, may the consciousness reveal itself to me, and may I not reject this knowledge. So this is a brief introduction to spiritual studies, why we should study, what is Upanishad, what is the speciality of Ishavasya Upanishad, why we are studying it, and a little bit of what is Brahma Vidya and how this Upanishad will connect with me. So we talked about the Anubandh Chatushtaya, what are the qualifications. So what we have to do is qualify ourselves, make ourselves Sadhan Chatushtaya Sampanna, and then with the words of the Guru, the Lord will reveal himself or herself, itself, that consciousness to us.
Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha, Sarve Santu Niramayaha, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya, Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityorma Amritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you, everyone.